this idea is very unacceptable to moderns, right? Especially skeptics and materialists and others. They say, "What? Are you kidding? The idea that there's an evil, there's a force out there, there's some sort of devil-like figure, and it's mocked and it's laughed at, but it actually possesses incredible explanatory power."
Sure does.
Years ago, I read a book, you've probably read it as well, by Alvin Plantinga called God, Freedom, and Evil. It's a short book, it's like 120 pages. But one of the kind of crucial things about that is that Plantinga is working through what's sometimes called the logical problem of evil. And not to get too deep in the weeds here, but the idea of the logical problem of evil has been that there was a philosophical argument that was made for decades in academia and philosophical theological circles that the goodness of God was incompatible with the existence of evil. But evil is real, therefore God cannot exist, right? And that's called the logical problem of evil. But Plantinga, in God, Freedom, and Evil, his book, and in other books, has basically surmounted the logical problem of evil. And this is admitted even by people that don't hold to Plantinga's Christian worldview. They've said, you know what? Actually, Plantinga makes a great case here. He makes not just a compelling case, but a definitive case that the goodness of God is not incompatible with nefarious, evil, demonic, satanic forces. And so while the moderns, might laugh at it, it's true. And we should say that there is a certain rationality to it, right? Evil's not just a principle. It's not like there's this dualism in the world, yin and yang and karma and give and take. No. For example, if there's a kidnapping, if there's a murder, if there's a tragedy of some kind, we understand that there's an agent behind that.
A person did it.
Yeah, there's agency there. Not in every case, earthquakes, tornadoes, etc., but in a significant percentage of the cases that we regard as tragic or terrible, we understand there's a personage. There's an agency. There's the misuse of freedom and of power. And so why wouldn't that, if there's an invisible, immaterial God who is good, why couldn't there be an invisible, immaterial power that has rebelled against God? And this is, in fact, what the whole of Scripture reveals, this great controversy motif that you're describing. So, yeah, I find it thoroughly persuasive, and it helps reality to make more sense. If we realize that, in the words of one of our favorite theologians, Gregory Boyd, the world looks like a war zone.
Because it is one.
Because it is a war zone.
Right.
And frankly, that possesses a lot of explanatory power. And so I love the fact that Jesus doesn't just deal with some kind of opaque, general sense of badness in the world. He says, no, deliver us from the evil one.
Right.
So
I'll just add to that.
Please.
That evil either exists or it doesn't exist. Now, in the materialistic worldview, the idea would be that there is no such thing as evil per se on a moral level. It's all natural process.
Right.
But if evil does exist, evil must be traceable to person, not just to a nameless principle or a depersonalized force.
I agree with that. Can you explain it?
So, well, you said if a kidnapping occurs, there's a kidnapper, right?
Right.
So on the human plane, we understand that murder, rape, child abuse, those types of things that we would regard as evil have a human agent behind them. So I think we can logically reason from that premise that it makes total sense that there would be evil on the cosmic level, on angelic level,
Gotcha.
From a biblical standpoint, that if there is evil in the world, it had to come from somewhere, and it didn't come from some kind of eternal principle that runs alongside good.
Otherwise, God becomes responsible.
Yeah, God becomes responsible. Right.
Yeah, this is part of the argument that Plantinga makes, and you've done a really great job articulating it there. And the other another part of this argument is that evil is not a thing. Evil is the absence of a thing. It's the absence of goodness. Goodness is a thing. We can say, oh, that's good. Oh, that was a good deed. Right. That was a good. We understand that in terms of moral value and moral quality, the presence of goodness or of virtue is an actual thing.
Yeah.
Evil is the absence of that thing, right? In the same way that darkness is not a thing, it's the absence of light. So evil possesses a kind of parasitic quality.
Right.
Now, if that's true, then there must have been the original article of which evil is parasitizing. I don't know if I said that word right, but that evil is aping. You follow? So it suggests that you really can only trace the origin of evil. We're getting a little philosophical here, but I think it's important. The origin of evil has to be traced to some agent. And it's either God as the ultimate cause, or it's to some agent that has rebelled against God, and happily enough,
or it doesn't exist at all.
Or it doesn't exist at all. Yeah, there are
for
worldviews.
which we would really be in a pickle, because
Correct.
then we'd have to look at something like a rape or a murder and say there's nothing inherently,
Correct.
intrinsically actually wrong with that. That's just an animal doing what an animal does,
Correct.
and you can't attach a moral quality to it.
There are worldviews that ask us to deny the existence of what we all know, and that is that there are bad things that happen in the world, immoral things, evil things, hurtful things, wrong things. And so if it has to be traced to some agency, some agent, and that agent is not God, happily for us, Scripture portrays that there was a rebellion. There was an angelic rebellion against the goodness and government of God, and Jesus will say things, for example, in the Gospels, Luke chapter 10, he'll say things like, I saw Satan, the enemy, the adversary, fall like lightning from heaven.